Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the studio this evening. This evening we are going to be painting something completely different than stuff I have been doing in the recent past. Today we are going to be painting some Stonehenge, but before I get to that, let me run through a few things here. As has been the case traditionally or recently, I'm using my Pro Art watercolor paper, 12 inches by 16 inches, 140 pound. It is wood pulp paper. I'm going to be using, for most of this, I'm going to try for most of this using my Dainayw Quill brush, and where I have to do some more detailed work, I'm going to be using my silver black velvet brushes. As always, I've got my tin of paints here. I'll run through these for you quickly. I've got Turquoise, Pthalo Blue, Ultramarine Blue, Cobalt Blue, Cerulean Blue, Cobalt Green, Pthalo Green, Olive, and Azo Green. I've got Cobalt Violet, Maroon Perylene, Permanent Alizarin Crimson, Pyrrol Red, Quinacridone Rose, and Burnt Umber. And here I've got Azo Orange, Gamboge, Hansa Yellow, Yellow Ochre, and up here I've got kind of my neutrals. I've got Sepia, Neutral Tint, and Paynes Gray. Let me set those off to the side and turn on the paint cam, wherever the paint cam is. There it is. Now I've got it. Holy cow, a little jostling around. I think that's all of everything in the background that we need to take care of. Okay, here's my picture of Stonehenge. If I can unclip this somehow. There's the picture I'm going to be using. Hello, Gail. Let me get rid of that clip. Okay, and I think I can do this. I'm trying to bobble. I've got over here, I've got my computer. Oh, I have one other thing to say. I'm probably going to repeat this a couple of times. I have a new desk that I'm using, similar setup. To me, it doesn't seem quite as sturdy. It wobbles a little bit. I just wobbled it right there. I don't know if you could see it. It seems as though the camera kind of is wobbling at the same rate as the desk, so I might be okay. But if you see a wobble throughout the video, just give me a holler and let me know, and I'm going to work on it throughout the week to see what I can do to take care of that, because I'm not exactly sure, to tell you the truth. So anyways, here's my Stonehenge that I've drawn. I've got my reference photo. I'll put it over here. You can just see the corner of my computer. Let's see. Put it right there. I think we can see everything. You got the paint cam down below. I've got the painting here. I do have water right up there. And with that, I think we're going to jump right in. I think I'm just going to start by putting a base color on my henge here. And I think what I'm going to do with that is a bit of yellow ochre, and I'm going to tone that down with a bit of sepia, and then I'm going to add some color to this as necessary. But I want I think I can already tell you this is not going to be good for the whole thing. I think what I'm going to end up doing is mixing in a few places with this some Paynes Gray, which should be this one right here, to give a bit of a bluer feel to this. I might be able to do quite a bit more Paynes Gray, actually. Let's see. These are rocks after all, but I don't want them to be totally blue and totally cold. There we go. And if you are wondering why I didn't do the sky first, well, there's a great reason for that. The reason is, I don't know, I didn't really feel like it. There's no real great reason. I could have done the sky first and then gone in and painted the rocks and everything else. I guess the real reason for it is that as I looked at my picture, I forgot to draw the horizon line. And I want to get the stones in to get a good reference for what's there before I commit myself to the horizon line. Even though I can see it in my reference photo, I don't want to have to commit to it too much. Okay, so this is no longer Paynes Gray. This is my neutral tint on this rock. Neutral tint has just a bit more purple in it. Paynes Gray is a bit bluer. The neutral tint is a bit purpler, which means it's a little bit warmer. Meaning it's got a little bit red in there. You can use that to some extent, not a great deal, but to some extent to help pull that rock forward just a little bit. And I'm kind of going and trying to keep my colors a little bit separated between the two rocks, but I'm not trying to be a slave to it. We're going to come back and we're going to do a lot with these rocks pretty soon afterwards. But you can see already, just mixing these colors and letting them do a lot on the paper, we're kind of getting some cool stuff going on with those. I'm pretty excited about that. Didn't over mix it on a palette, which means that paint has plenty of time to blend itself in on the paper. And I am trying to think a little bit about leaving some of this warmer color. Not that the yellow ochre is super warm, but I want some of that yellow ochre to be more towards the inside here where that light is coming from. It's coming right from back here, so I do want a little bit of that color, that warmer color on the inside here. But if I don't get too much of it, I'm not going to sweat all that much because the colors are a bit relative, and we can always darken up the background or change the outside of the rocks to suit our purpose. I'm going to give just a little bit more gray in there. There we go. And I think you can see, or I hope you can see, anyways, my new table, the whole thing has about a 10% slant on it. So I'm going to end up with little pools like this one and this one over here that I'm going to have to go back and pick up at some point, or live with the back run that develops because of it. But you can totally deal with that. That is not much of a big deal at all. Now these rocks back here, even though they're further in the back, they're not bluer, they're just darker in value. I'm going to paint those in like that. I don't want to get too much into value here on this first coat. I do want to make a bit of a color difference for my own edification here between like these rocks that are way in the foreground and maybe the ones that are back there a little bit, but I don't want to get carried away with it. Let's see. Nobody is asking questions. Nobody is talking tonight. If you guys have any questions, please just feel free to throw them out there. I'm totally happy to answer any questions that you might have at any time. In fact, a lot of times the questions make things more fun because if you don't ask questions, you just got to listen to me drone on about whatever I want to talk about. If you guys ask questions, then you'll get to hear what you want to hear about, and you don't have to listen to me babble on for so much. So if you've got a question about something, throw it out. I'm happy to take a crack at trying to answer it. If I can't answer, if I don't know, I'll just let you know. I'm not worried about that. Lots of stuff I don't know. Let's see. There we're going. All right, I got my basic rocks in there right now. And I don't know, for the most part, I think I'm happy with what I've got. I'm not completely ecstatic with it yet, but they do, if you're asking me, look like a bunch of rocks. I think that's a good thing to start with. There we go. That's great. I need to put a towel right over there. All right, and now I need to decide what to do with my ground here. My ground is, I'm doing this completely backwards. I'm just thinking about my ground. What color is my ground? My ground, I want to paint it green. Everybody knows the grass is green on the bottom, but this one, I don't think that's going to work out that way. So, actually, you know what? Let's just start in from the top. That's probably dark or dry enough. Not dark enough. It's probably dry enough. We should be able to. Is that a drop of paint? That is. We should be able to get a nice sky and then just blend that right on down. So, I think I am going to start with a nice Cobalt Blue, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just transition through all these colors right on down. This nice Cobalt Blue, I'm going to throw some actual other, maybe a Cerulean Blue. I'm going to throw a bunch of blues in here on the top. I need more water than that. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw that all the way down, right through these clouds, right through the ground here, and just bring that right down all the way around. Right around the hinge. Hinge was always such a funny word to me. Growing up, I always thought it was a funny word. What's a hinge? I know what a hinge is. I don't know what a hinge is. I guess as I got older, I started to understand what a hinge was. Maybe a little bit more. I don't know. Whoops. I know what Cadillac hinge is. I think that's a pretty hysterical thing that guy in Texas did. Yes, I know. I'm not really talking about watercolors. I'm talking about everything but watercolors. I'm trying to distract myself from these tight lines that I got to go through here. Okay, so I think where I'm at, I'm actually probably a little too low here. I'm going to pull a little bit of this blue off. feed some more up here. I'm going to mix in just a bit of this Pthalo Blue because that's a nice darkening blue. There we go. I don't need it to get too bright though. And then I'm going to add a little bit of water all in through here. And I'm going to start mixing in a little red, a little violet, moving into some of these oranges as we work down the page. All right, let's see. I'm going to dig right in with my violet. This is Cobalt Violet. I'm just going to drop some in here. That should produce an interesting sky. A little bit of water. I hope you guys can see what I'm doing over there on the paint cam. I like my little paint cam. You know, I watch videos on YouTube too, and half the people, their brush goes away and you don't see anything, and then they come back and it's loaded with paint and they're using it, and you go, wait a minute, how watery was it? How you know, what did it look like when you were pulling it out? Was it like this? Was it like that? How did you do this? And so when I said I was going to get serious about, whoa, that is a lot, about videos and making live videos, one of the things I really wanted to bring in was that paint cam so everybody could see it. I hope it is useful to everybody. Let's see, here's my brightest spot. I'm going to continue to try and lighten that up right there a little bit. Quiet tonight. Everybody's quiet tonight. If you have any questions, just throw them out like I said before. Believe me, it'll be a lot better than listen to me babble on for a few hours. Oh, no. Hang on. Let me take that back. I'm not painting for a few hours. If I got to paint for a few hours in this session, I'm not prepared. I got to go get a big glass of water because my voice probably won't hold out. I have to schedule an intermission maybe at some point in time. All right, now see, I've gone too far here. There we go. I need to really warm that up. Blue and orange are, of course, complements, and so you've got to be careful a bit in mixing the two of those, or else you just turn up with a muddy kind of color, and I don't want a muddy kind of color. If I want a muddy kind of color, I can certainly do that on my own. The other thing I don't want is I don't want this too bright on the side here. So I'm trying to tone that down just a bit. And here's all of my light source come right on through. I don't know, I've got a little hope for this. I didn't know what to think of this to do as a painting. When I originally saw this picture, I mean, the picture is fantastic, but I didn't know how this was going to play out. Oh, we got some questions. I should have looked up. All right. I'm almost there. I'm coming right back to you. I get all carried away with dropping some color in here. Well, that's too bright. That's brighter than I want right there. I guess we'll deal with it. Not that big of a deal. Just means I'm going to have to brighten a little bit over here. And I got some on this side, and I'm going to get to your questions in just a second, but I don't want my paint to get to too hard of an edge. I'm mixing a little of this ochre into the sky there, and it's going to make it look a little bit golden. Actually, that's probably a little too bright. I do love that we have lots of questions flowing in, though. I'm going to get to you, I promise. But we only got one shot. One shot with the sky. There we go, and it gets, okay, so now I can start getting a little bit darker here. What is the technique for lightening after you've already put down paint? That's called the, oh no, why did I do that technique. No, actually that's lifting, and it's actually a very useful technique, and everybody does it all the time. We all do it. The real key with lifting is to learn. So I'm just dipping into a little burnt umber here and a little bit of the yellow ochre. I want to get a nice base down here. The real technique with lifting is this, and it's not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world if you don't know everything about your paints, but it helps a great deal if you know which colors are staining colors and which colors are granulating colors, because the staining colors, as it sounds like from the name, the staining colors stain quite a bit more and are a bit harder to lift out. The granulating colors fall into the little pockets of the paper a bit more, but you can grab those and pull those out if need be, or if you're not using paper that has big pockets in it, like this does not have big pockets in it. You can see a little bit of granulating maybe here in the sky, but they're not huge pockets. If you use it like Arches, cold press has bigger ones. Arches rough paper has huge pockets in it. Then you'll really you could really have a hard time lifting the color out of that, whether it's staining or granulating or not. Let's see, what else do we got here? Late for you in the Midwest. What part of the Midwest, Gail, are you from? I'm originally from Ohio. Hi, Shirley. Michael, did you see my question? Yes. Sherry, yes, I got your question. Granulated would look like grains. Northern Indiana, wow, neighbors. So here's a little bit of, let's see, the cobalt purple here. Actually, you could probably see the granulating the best on. I've got a couple of the cobalt colors on my palette. Cobalt Green and the Cobalt Violet. The Cobalt colors are big granulators. Actually, you might be able to see it here on my card. See, the Pthalo Green is, you know, relatively smooth. Look at the olive green, is very smooth. And then look over here at the Cobalt Green, and you can see it's all look like it's pockmarked. And the same thing down here on the Violet. In fact, I couldn't even draw this out all that well because it granulates so much. And then you've got one like the Sepia. Look, it's just so smooth all through there. That's what the granulation is. Excuse me. It just kind of, I don't know, it's got big heavy grains that fall down into whatever we're looking at, or, you know, whatever kind of paper we're working on. and they just get in there, and so the color just kind of falls down. So any high spot on there comes out more white, and any low spot comes out with more color on it, and that's why it looks so much more granulated. Okay, so I'm going to stop with my ground and my sky right there. Obviously, we're going to come back to that in a second, but now my hinge has dried up. I want to go back and put another coat onto them and begin the darkening process with them. You know what would be great? Let me put some sepia on them. Yes. Sepia, I should say, is a color I fell in love with, absolutely fell in love with about a year ago. I never knew I wanted to use sepia. I've got my brush all charged here, and I wanted to go over here with it, but I'm not sure with this much on it, with this much water on it, that I'm going to be able to get into those tight areas. I know you should be able to. You really should. But quite honestly, my hand's not quite as stable as it used to be. And so I worry sometimes. All right, now I should be able to get over here, and that's fairly dry, because what I want to do, and don't ask me why I'm doing it this way, because I don't have a great answer for you. Yes, I could paint everything that's going to be in shadow here, and then I could come back and do this detail, but I've painted Stonehenge before. Well, I painted rocks before. I guess just rocks is the way to say it. And for me, whether I enjoy it more or whether I think they come out more, I think actually what I think it is that I feel like I can see what's going on with my painting a little bit better if I paint it in bits like this. Let's see. Do I like one color brand better than another? Yes. Yes. This entire palette is M. Graham paints, and I would put these paints up against just about every other paint brand that you can get. Are they the best at every color? No, I don't think they are. But what I think they are is really good at every color, if that makes sense. I have a bunch of Winsor Newton stuff. I'm not a huge fan. Winsor and Newton paints dry super hard when they dry, and they're really hard to re-wet. And I don't have any problem with their color. In fact, most of the companies use the same pigments for everything, whether whatever they are. I don't know what the actual pigments are. I know what the pigment numbers are, but Chemically speaking, the pigments are almost all the same across manufacturers. The big difference is what else is in the paints. And M. Graham puts, they're very proud of the fact, and they'll tell you on all of their material that they put honey in their paints, and it's that honey that keeps the paints so moist, so you can re-wet them. You can just take a brush and go like that, and you've got instant color. There's no waiting around, there's no rubbing it, there's no doing a whole lot of other stuff. Hang on, all the lights are going off in my studio here. There's not doing a whole lot of other stuff because the paints are wet right now. I believe Daniel Smith also puts honey in their paints. A few of the manufacturers do. Daniel Smith is interesting because they make a gazillion colors that nobody else does, but I've never, I should say, I don't think that their colors are better than the colors that I get, the vibrancy, the light fastness, the whatnot that I get out of the M. Grahams that I use. So I have just kind of stuck with them and been very, very happy with them. Let's see, I have, I got to go back here. Actually, where's the, you want her respiration? Just tamping over there. Okay. Student grade while learning the pigment isn't that great in the, yes. The pigment in student grade paint, well, the pigment itself that's in the student grade paints that you have is the same pigment that's in professional grade paint. It's the same pigment. It's not in the paint with the same intensity or the same pigment load. So, you know, that cake, if you buy, well, let's just pull one of these out. Let's do this. I can take a moment. Where do I put this? Right here. So I have a set here of Winsor & Newton Cotman paints. They're nice student grade paints. Uh-oh. I was going to grab something real fast as a demo. I know I've got it here. Hold on one second. Where did it go? I know you're here. Ha! Got it. Okay, here we go. Winsor & Newton Cotman paints. Winsor & Newton professional paints. Here they are. Mine look a little wet. They might look a little wet to you. I just put some... Oh, God, now I can't remember what this is. I just put some gum Arabic on them to try and loosen them up a little bit. But the pigment that's in this, the alizarin crimson, the permanent alizarin crimson here is the exact same pigment as the permanent alizarin crimson here. The only difference is the amount of pigment that's in here will probably be double or triple the amount that's in this student paint. Which is good and bad. I suppose it's good because when you work, especially with a paint like M. Graham or one that wets very quickly, it can be a little daunting because they wet so fast and you can get so much paint on your paintbrush. So these ones, you can get them as wet as you want and you can't get all that much paint out of them. The density is only going to be so much. So in one sense, it's fine. It's a great thing to do. In another sense, If you have intention of transitioning to higher grade paints and you use these for very long, then you get used to this and then you move to this and it's a completely different thing. So I don't know, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. And today's day and age, paints are so plentiful, so bountiful, and cheap that there's lots of them that you could, professional paints that you could buy that wouldn't cost that much more than the student ones that you might buy. I don't know. I hope that answered your question. Let me think. I can when you're talking about re-wetting when it's an issue. Was I talking about re-wetting on the paint itself or re-wetting on the palette? When I talk about re-wetting the paints, I'm talking about re-wetting them on the palette. Winsor Newton. Well, most of the high-grade professional paints are really. You know what? This is too big for the stuff in the back there. They're usually pretty good about being on the paper, so that you can do some glazing. Once they dry and harden a little bit, they're usually pretty set. There's not a whole lot else you can do with them. Right, they're there, and that's why when you try to scrub them out, you gotta scrub a little bit to get them out of there because they've dried and set, and that's how they're going to be. Let's see. I need to. This whole thing is in shadow. This is where. When I do this, I like to know what this rock looks like back there. I need to put a little bit of something on it. Otherwise, it's just a shape. Let's see. All I have so far are watercolor tubes. I had trouble getting tubes. You're gonna. Oh God! Your tube of paint ruptured. And they went everywhere because that's what they do. I had a tube of, so I go around to all the garage sales, or not all the garage sales, but the garage sales and estate sales on the weekends to try to buy art supplies to see what's there and what's worth buying and what's not worth buying. And at one point in time, I bought a tube or several tubes of paint, one of which was alizarin crimson. And I came home and the top had dried on it, which would be fine. I'm not worried about that. However, I tried to turn it off like this, and it came all off on my fingers and everywhere. And holy shnikey, man, it felt like it took me days and weeks and months to get that off of my hands. All right, I'm going to stop where I'm going. I've got a little bit on each of these, and I'm going to start to darken in a little bit of my shadow here. These cool stripes that we've got. And I'm hoping this is going to work. All right, I put in a little bit of color here, and then I came back and put a little bit of neutral tint. That's got to be a little stronger there. A little bit of neutral tint in at the top here, and where you can see it, where let's do that. Let's just make that one big one. There we go. where it touched the rock, it just barely flowed down, and that's a result of my having the whole board on an angle here. Let's see, maybe a little sepia in here. Something like this. They don't need to be perfectly straight. I don't want them to be perfectly straight. Well, that one's got an arc on it. I don't want an arc on it either. There we go. I like that. I'm going to do the same thing with a little bit of this neutral tint up here. And that, you know, it's kind of a, well, I was going to say it's kind of a cheat. It's not really a cheat. I guess it's a technique to help ground that shadow. I'm just going to draw some to help ground that shadow at the base of these. I've found some in thrift stores that with Liquitex paints. Huh. I've never used Liquitex paint. All right, let me keep rolling ahead here. These nice big streaks. Let's see, what am I got to do? Here we go. Just a little bit there. And like I said, that's going to run down and make this look really so nice. All right, there's that one, and I need to get this in a little tighter in here. There we go. Oh, I forgot this guy over here. All right, let me get a bigger brush. Here. That gets a little... Maybe that crossbar, top of that hinge is there, something like that. Could be. A little bit of this shadow. Darken it up there. It just really helps to make that pop out a little bit. All right, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and I'm going to give more shape to these. Let's see. And I'm going to do that by, well, I've got to cover up this end, which I know is not in the light. There we go, I've got that. I'm just trying to reach around. One, so I don't paint right over top of what you guys are trying to see. And two, so that I don't get my hands on too much stuff here. Let's see, this old rock's got some nicks and bumps and stuff in it like that, I think. And I'm gonna, let's see, I like this, I'm gonna start over here. These ones back in the back here. I don't need to put too much detail on. Just a little bit here and a little bit there. But I want to give them a little bit of form. If I do something like that, all of a sudden I've got three distinct rocks back here now. You know what? The base of this rock is much bluer. I can already tell. So I want to make sure I mix in a little bit of that Paynes Gray in there. And if you wanted to, at this stage, you could go and really put a soft edge in there, and it would really make that round, you know, look to this rock. Or you could do something like this where there's a hard edge and it looks like maybe there's, you know, a piece of that rock that has fallen out or something like that. Up to you. That's part of the artist license right there. You get to make it look exactly like you want. So I'm going to do this right down here. And I'm going to blend this out. I want part of this rock to be more in shadow than others. There we go. And really, if we wanted to, we could take some orange and put right up there. And then that should look like, when that light's coming through, that we get a bit of that color. Now, I think it needs to be darker back here. This is a great time. As long as that paint is already wet, or this rock is already wet, let's just go ahead and give it a little bit more color here. I'm using some pretty strong colors. That light is pretty bright coming around here, so shouldn't be afraid to do this. And then that color should just kind of seep up there a little bit and really help us out. Okay, now I'm not gonna do, well, yeah, I can do that. That's doesn't quite touch. I need to get this nice and dark down here. You know what? I'm gonna mix in a little bit of blue here. This is Pthalo Blue with Sepia. It's gonna give a really dark. This is a dark, cold area, maybe a little bit more sepia than that. I don't want it quite that blue. Put a little umber in there too. This is a really dark area over here. There we go. Now that just pushed this whole, it brought this rock forward, it pushed this one back quite a lot. And as we go up, maybe it gets a little bit lighter. It doesn't have to get a whole lot lighter. There we go. Still dark on this side. And then even though we've got this shadow, it's not a shadow, this darker unlit area over here, it's not quite as dark as this bit. I think it needs just a little bit more in here. And then I'm going to lighten this out a bit over to this side where that edge is and make a dark edge. Not quite that dark. And with any luck, it's then going to look like there's actually some shape to this rock on this back side. And we can force that actually by taking out a little bit right there. And that should have made that like look like it pops out a little bit. Look, I'm just all of a sudden I'm just trying to paint here. I'm not even paying attention to what you guys are saying. I need to look up. There you go. I just fixed it. I just changed the bottom here. I don't know if you could see what I did. I didn't like the way that this came down, so I just squared it off here by drawing a line straight down. I'm going to darken that a little bit. I want the contrast. I need sepia. I want the contrast between this bigger rock that I'm working on and the one in front to stand out. I want this whole little rock in front to be pushed out here. Let's see, what's everybody saying now? Let me look up. Would all caps help me in finding the questions? They might. They really might. You're loving the painting. The painting is coming together. It's getting a bit better. The paintings are weird when you look at them. You have this grand idea when you start. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and I know that this is going to work and that's going to work and it's going to look like this, and then you start to paint something and you go, oh no, this doesn't look like anything I wanted it to look like. What am I doing? I don't have any idea. And you might be a little self-doubt that creeps in there. And then if you keep working it and keep working it and keep working it, you know what happens? It starts to come together and you go, yeah, now it's getting there. I'm liking the way that this is going. I'm just putting some flecks in here. We know that this is an old stone. It's been around for, okay, maybe I don't know how long it's been around. Stonehenge has been around a long time. I do know that. How long exactly, I don't know, but quite a long time. Let me get a little bit of that phthalo in here. This is a really dark area in here. I don't want I keep going back to the phthalo. I like phthalo blue. Not my favorite blue, but I really like phthalo blue. But phthalo brings a certain darkness to the table that other colors don't necessarily bring. So when you mix phthalo with it, you can make something look like it's a lot darker than maybe it really is. And there we go. So we've just put on that phthalo blue, and all of a sudden now we've got something that's in a deep shadow, and we're starting to see some separation between all of these stones here. I want to do a little lifting out right here if I can. For some reason, I don't want quite as much of a difference there. I think that looks better to me. The other thing with lifting out, what I should say is, other than knowing the paint that you're using, if you use a really soft sized paper, you can probably lift stuff once off of it. After that, it's going to start being tough. 5,000 years old. Wow. I knew old. I didn't know quite that old. That is way old. I was shocked. I wasn't shocked. It's not shocking. But I never thought about it. So we all heard about the Notre-Dame Cathedral that went up in flames this week. And it was a terrible loss, not just for the French, but for everybody, really. But it's it was built in 1200. Why, holy cow, or at least started in 1200. How does that happen? 1200 here in the Americas, we weren't doing anything. I mean, I know how the song goes. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, I think. I mean, I know there were people here before Christopher Columbus came by, but there weren't the establishments here. The building of the scale that started after he came wasn't here. Let's see, this is a little too light for me. I need to tone this down. You know what? I'm going to let's get a little orange tint on this one. I don't need to get everything with that. I'll put a little bit of orange here too. So that's kind of in, maybe a little bit more orange. There we go. You see me rinsing my brush a lot. I do that with all of my brushes. I tend to rinse quite a bit, and that is, if you are wondering, that is a direct result of the pigment load being so high that these M-gram paints carry. There we go. That looks better. Now that looks like it's reflecting the orange from the center over here. I like that. There was a lot happening here, and I've been in Ohio since the same amount of time. Yes, they've been in Ohio. Like the Serpent Mounds have been there for a long, long time. I understand that, but not on the scale. It's not that they're not organized, but maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not right. The Serpent Mounds are cool. They're absolutely cool. I've been down to see those. They're unbelievable. I don't want to say anything against the Serpent Mound. I'm not going to say anything bad about the Buckeye State, my ancestral home. But there was just, it's just amazing that they're going to quarry all those rocks and carry them from all over, and the amount of math and learning that went into trying to build the cathedrals of Europe that long ago, to me, is just unbelievable. And so I am not, I'll be honest with you, loving this rock over here. I'm struggling with this one a little bit. I'll just put a little orange on it and work on the one above it. I don't know why that one doesn't like me. I'm just going to put some indications of something up on that one. Let's see what I can do. These other little ones here. I know, all of a sudden I've gotten awfully quiet. Not because I've run out of anything to say, or anything good to say. It's debatable whether I had anything good to say or at all or not. Just trying to concentrate that little bit. I mean, I don't know, these little ones here, I'm not wild about. I think I need a little bit of something on this side of them. That might help me. Underneath. We'll get those. And a little bit on the top of that rock. And we don't need a whole lot on those. Those are very small. They're far away. Oh, wait a minute. We're talking about Stonehenge created by aliens. Nice. At least they're coming and doing something nice here instead of just trying to capture people and take them away in a spaceship. Although, you know, there's a couple of people I'd be okay if they took away in a spaceship. This rock here, I want to give a little bit of color to, but I want to have a definite definition between this rock and the ones behind it, I want you to be able to notice that it's a separate rock sticking out there. Cattle prods. Yes, somebody's been watching Ancient Aliens on... No, not Ancient Aliens. They wouldn't say that on Ancient Aliens. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. I think the whole alien phenomenon, if you want to call it a phenomenon, it's kind of funny. I want to believe that they're aliens. I really do. I just haven't seen one lick of proof that they're here. And I can't for the life of me understand why, if they came here from gazillions of miles away, why they would not show themselves to us, or who's more than I don't know, people in Gulf View, Florida, or selected people around Area 51. Who else seems to see all the aliens? I don't know. I don't think we're alone. I think there is life out there. Well, I'm just not convinced they've come here yet. Or if they were here and have long since gone. And I don't know who scared them away. All right. So, trying to do a similar thing with these stones, these giant stones over here. To give a nice dark look on the side furthest away from our light source, and then blend that back the whole way. I love the X-Files. It was a great show for what it was. Let's see, these old stones. I'm just adding in a few lines here and there, some old details. You know, they've been old and sitting around, and they're a little chipped and beaten up. All right, so now we've got a lot of this in here. We've got to do a few things, not the least of which is to do something with the horizon. And yes, I've been putting it off for quite a long time. How long are we in here? An hour into it, and I don't have a horizon line yet. And if I'd only remembered to draw it in. So let me look on the picture here. Oh, I need to ask. They're not stupid. We're a nutty Earth. Oh, they're not stupid. We're nutty Earth people. Oh, that's why they're not here. I need to ask, has my table seemed like it's been shifting and wobbly? I hope not. I got a new desk. I explained at the beginning of the video, if anybody's still here from then, I got a new desk, and it's not quite as stable as I basically had a door I was painting on it. This is not much of anything. And so it wobbles a little bit. I'm trying not to do it, but you're saying no, it's not wobbling, thankfully. Okay, so now I'm looking at my picture to see about where my horizon needs to be. And I'm going to use a very light orange with a little bit of blue, and I'm hoping I can draw in here somewhere. I told you all my lights are going off. I rearranged my studio to get my new desk in here, and everything got all wonky doodle. Time will tell if that's a level horizon line or not. And I don't want that hard line, so I'm going to take that same paint very light and just blend it way down as it comes this way. And with any luck, I will have cheated watercolors a little bit and made it look somewhat like a horizon line there. All right, well, we're not done with everything yet because we got a lot of empty space here. We got a few shadows and whatnot on it, but a lot of empty spaces we need to do something with. I'm just going to continue as I think I need to put some on here. I'm just going to continue to put a mark or two on these old rocks. All right, to make them look a bit more weathered. I don't know, something like that. They're getting there. Maybe a little too much in some places, maybe not enough in others. They're looking kind of old and grizzled. I think the more I play with them, the better they're going to get here. Yeah, well, whoop, not that one. That was the wrong color. Until they start looking a little too toyed with. You can make it look totally monkeyed up when we don't want it to. All right, I'm going to stop there for now. Okay, so we need to do something here. We've got some nice simple grasses here, and I'm going to do, let's see, this is orange and sepia, a nice brown. I'm going to find a nice spot. I like where the color breaks right here. I'm just going to put in a little bit of color and blend that down, and all of a sudden that's going to give us this little hillock. And in a couple of places I can take, this is I've just dropped down to a number 2 brush here. And we can just grab this and pull up and put a few weeds in here. You know what? I didn't pull this down quite far enough. I want this totally gone on a couple of sides. There we go. Just with that same color, I'm just going to grab in the body of this and pull up a couple of places. It's going to give us a couple of weeds in there. Back here, I'm just going to put in a few lines. I'm not going to do anything much back there with our nice, this is an orange and sepia mix. The stones all seemed light tan when you turned this on, and now they've gotten better. And you know what? I think you're right. They were way too bright before, and they needed a little something. And now it's a bit better. All right. I don't want to add too much around here. We can put a few splots down here on the ground too. That might be too dark. But I don't want to add too much detail to the foreground, because I want all of the attention to go back to these stones back here in the light. So I'm going to beef up these over here. And I'm just going to continue to add a few colors here and there. In the foreground. I need my number 2 back. So I can draw in a few of these weeds. And weeds get clumped together. Weeds, if don't grow on their own. If there's one patch of weeds, there's a couple of patches of weeds right on around them. You know what, I don't like this. I'm going to lighten this up with a little bit of that orange color coming back in there. Soften out the bottom of those. A couple of weed patches and some dry brushing for a little texture, a little additional texture. And I think that's about what I want to do with it. Am I correct? Could you put the color paints and sizes of brushes you're using in the description? I can tell you what they are right now. I think I can probably get them in the description, but I can show you. Let me get this out of the way for just a second. So in here, where do I got? Okay, here we go. I've got turquoise. This is the palette that I'm working with right now. I've got turquoise, phthalo blue, ultramarine, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, and those are my blues. I've got warm and cold blues in here. Then my greens, I've got cobalt green, phthalo green, olive green, and Azo Green. I know that Azo Green is only Azo Green in M. Graham paints. Everybody likes to use the green gold in Daniel Smith paints, but it's the exact same, PY129. Anyways, these are a cold and a warm green and a darker and a lighter green. Okay, so those are my blues and my greens. I've got my neutrals over here, Sepia, Neutral Tint, and Paynes Gray. Then I have Cobalt Violet thrown in, and it's kind of off by itself here. My reds from warm to cold are Maroon Perylene, Permanent Alizarin Crimson, Pyrrol Red, and Quinacridone Rose. Then I've got Burnt Umber, and then I've got some oranges and yellows here. So Azo Orange is my only true orange. Gamboge is a warm yellow, and Hansa Yellow is a cold yellow, and yellow ochre set off by itself. This is the palette that I've been using for a couple of weeks now, and I've pretty much found I can mix anything I want with these. Prior to this, I was using one that was 10 colors or 11 colors, something like that, and I felt like I needed just a few more, so that's what I've got going on there. And the brushes that I'm using tonight, yes, they are all rounds. This is the Dainayw Squirrel Round from Amazon. I think you can buy the set of these. Let's see, 1, 3, and 5. Oh, that's a different one. Here it is. 1, 3, and 5 in the set. I believe they're $40-ish. And then I bought these because everybody that you see on YouTube seems to be using these, and I wanted to know what everybody was talking about. So I bought 2, 4, 6, and 8. I don't need probably the 4 and the 6, but these are the silver black velvet brushes. Quite honestly, I'm not completely sold on these, but I don't hate them either. These are Squirrel Mix brushes, I believe. So those are what I'm using. All my paints are M. Graham paints that I use. And I think that's about it. Here is what I came up with from the reference photo. It's not quite the same, but it's not so bad. My version of Stonehenge. So that's it. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed painting with you. I do have trouble, I know, reading from the computer while I'm painting because it's just me here in the studio. But thank you for your patience. I really appreciate it. I will try to get everything that I'm used here in the description this time. And that's it. We'll see you again next time. I'll be back here next Saturday evening at 8 Pacific doing another painting. I'll try to get a notice up about what I'm painting. This was a particularly busy week for me. There was no chance it was going up. But anyways, thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye. Happy Easter.